Part 10. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 91. Chapter 91, Snatching the Wooden Beads, 3. For Xianxia, who has no relationship experience, it is a bit difficult to bring a perfect ending to the relationship between the two. I don't think it's perfect no matter what. After a while, she suddenly realized that the test of this door was not whether the ending of the relationship was perfect, but the human character. She considers herself to be a very righteous person, but she is not righteous without a bottom line. If she wants to say goodbye to the person she loves, what ending does she want? She is the calmest at this time without any emotional experience, but she knows that the decision she makes at this time may not necessarily be the decision she is involved in. Looking at the relief stories on the wall, the two have parents and relatives who love them, tribesmen who watch and help each other, and friends who treat each other with sincerity. Xianxia felt that if she were the woman in the story, she would not want her lover to leave with her after her death. Traveling to the next life is not easy, and there is not only love in life, nor do they live just for each other. It is already very sad when one person leaves. When two people leave, there are no relatives, tribesmen, or friends to even miss. She hopes that after she leaves, her lover will live bravely, fulfill her filial piety to her parents, and fulfill their wishes one by one. Although he has to complete it alone, it will not be in vain that they have loved each other for the rest of their lives. If possible, she hopes that he can meet another woman who loves him, have children and grandchildren, and live happily together for a lifetime. After thinking about it, she picked up her pen and filled it with ink, and started painting on the bronze door, an ending she recognized. She borrowed the light of her original owner's versatility. She was in poor health in her previous life and did not have that much experience and physical strength to learn other things. However, the original owner was very versatile under the guidance of her parents. A quarter of an hour later, a painting appeared on the bronze door. After waiting for a while, the door didn't open. I don't know if the way I thought of opening the door was wrong, or if the ending of my story was wrong. She sighed and put down her pen, wondering if there was any other way to open the door. Just after she put down the pen, the door cracked a straight gap in the middle and then opened. It turns out that you have to put down the pen before I recognize that you have finished the ending of the story. She didn't know how the ending of her story was approved by the door. Anyway, the door was already opened and she walked in immediately. After entering the first door, she had no way out and could only move forward. The door behind her closed, the passage lit up, and then a bright road opened in front of her. The copper road turned into a screen, with sky, mountains, and rivers, busy people, practicing monks, and ordinary people. Difficult survival, love, hate, etc., everything in the world was displayed to her on the screen at her feet, as vividly as if it were real. Xianxia was surprised. What does this mean? She watched carefully and walked slowly. She didn't know how much time had passed. When she reached the end of the screen, another door appeared in front of her. The door this time was different from the previous two doors. There was a painting on it, which seemed to be an extension of the scene shown on the screen under her feet that she had seen before. Below is the lower world, and then the higher world. In the higher world, there is a world extending upwards from palaces. She counted exactly 9 palaces. Above the palaces, there is a beautiful world shrouded in clouds and mist. In a magnificent world, a towering giant tree grows lushly there. The tree is full of flowers, which is very spectacular. Xianxia was stunned. Why did this tree look so similar to the evergreen tree in the 9 heavens she had seen in the book that had the same lifespan as heaven and earth and bloomed once every 1,000 years? Looking at the painting on the door again, she suddenly realized that this was not a world-level map. The bottom is the lowest continent where she lives, followed by the higher world. The 9 palaces should represent the 9 heavens. The top one is the world that everyone longs for above the 9 heavens. That tree is the evergreen tree. Yan Xianglao looked at the painting in front of her as if this was the path she was going to take. It was just the first time that it was shown so clearly in front of her. She knew that this was just a painting, and she would have to see the real higher world and the 9 heavens in person in the future to know what it was like. What she needs to consider now is what is this testing her for. The road Xuanhuan chose was indeed very safe. He didn't encounter anyone or any monsters, but it was very strange. The first door seemed like a joke, but now that she thought about it, she felt it was abnormal. How could the owner of this space artifact leave behind such a joke-like test? How did he know Open Sesame, and how did he know that someone could open such a door? The second gate tests one's character. Although I don't know the specific reason for passing it, it has a lot to do with her broad-mindedness and lack of selfishness. So what is the test of this third gate? Her beautiful eyes were on the painting on the door, looking up and down and thinking. Time passed little by little, and the clouds on her shoulders noticed that someone had arrived at Muju's location. She hadn't even thought of a way out yet. Xuanhuan was a little anxious, but it was useless to be anxious because he could not open this door. You can't attack forcefully, otherwise the entire passage will disappear, and the people inside will naturally disappear and cease to exist. It can only wait. At this time, Yan Xianglao, who had been thinking for a long time, suddenly walked to the door, raised her hand and slapped the tree, and said firmly, "I must go and see the evergreen trees in my lifetime to see what that world is like." As soon as she finished speaking, a ray of light flashed across the door, and a distant voice came, "Remember what you experienced today, remember your decision, I hope you never forget your original intention, and the world will be what you want it to be." The voice disappeared and the third door opened. The vision suddenly brightened up, and Yan Xianglao knew in her heart that she had guessed correctly. The third door was to test the lofty ambition of her. Although she didn't know who the voice belonged to, she still had doubts in her heart. She always felt that something was wrong. Why did she feel like this was a test tailor-made for her? However, she didn't have time to think too much, because she saw that the space outside had become wider, and strong men and spiritual beasts were gathered together. Although not all of them, there were quite a few. It seemed that although the path she took was the safest and shortest, it took a lot of time. Fortunately, the place where she came out was not where the monster was. The place where strong men and monsters gather must be where the wooden beads are. It seems that the wooden beads have not been taken away, otherwise people and monsters cannot live together so peacefully. Where are the wooden beads? Yan Xianglao walked out of the door and looked forward curiously on tiptoes. The door behind him also disappeared, leaving only a passage. End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 92. Chapter 92, Snatching the Wooden Beads, 4. No one paid attention to her arrival. Everyone and the monsters gathered in a circle, looking at the middle. Although Yan Xianglao couldn't see what was inside, she could see a tall copper pillar with a copper box placed on it. The rich smell of vegetation came from there. Are the wooden beads in that box? Then what are these strong men and monsters waiting for? Yan Xianglao looked left and right, but she couldn't see what was going on inside. She turned her head to look at the passage she had just come out of behind her. She summoned her strength, flexibly supported the sides of the passage and rushed up until she reached the top of the passage. She was finally higher than the people in front of her and could see the scene inside. It turns out that the reason why neither the strong man nor the monster beast moved is that 9 copper chains spread out from the place below the copper pillar at a height of 1 person, and were connected to the necks of 9 unknown beasts around them. The 9 beasts formed a circle around the copper pillar, while the strong men and monsters formed another larger circle. This scene is like some kind of formation. Although Yan Xianglao doesn't understand the formation, she still feels like this. And it is a very powerful formation, so these strong men and monsters are afraid of it and do not dare to act rashly. Yan Xianglou sighed. She knew nothing about battle tactics, but she really had no idea. Besides, there were so many powerful people around, so it was not her turn to do anything. Looking at the strong men, he saw familiar people again. Xuanhuan was among them. His eyes were not looking at the 9 beasts, but at the copper box on the copper pillar. To her surprise, Qin Sui also arrived. It seemed that the Qin family's family background was extraordinary, and she still managed to keep her in check. And Bai Tang Yunfan, who was rescued by her, was also in the crowd at this time. It turns out that he came here for Muzu. Before, she thought Bai Tang Yunfan was here for training. With his hands loosened, he fell lightly to the ground and used his spiritual consciousness to communicate with Yun Tuan. Yun Tuan, are the wooden beads in that box? Yun Tuan shook his head, not here. Huh, Yan Xianglou thought she would get a positive answer, but unexpectedly Yun Tuan actually said that the wooden beads were not in the copper box. Where are the wooden beads? Yan Xianglou asked curiously. There was no place to put wooden beads in the scene she just saw. The owner of the wooden beads will know after they take them away, Yun Tuan said. Yan Xianglou's mouth twitched. You mean, we just wait aside and then we can get the wooden beads by picking up the leaks? Roughly the same. Yan Xianglou's big eyes flickered, and that weird feeling came again. Why did it feel like this place existed just for her to get the wooden beads? I looked at the strong men who were all a little embarrassed. If I really got the wooden beads, I sympathized with them. They worked so hard that they actually made her wedding clothes. Maybe they didn't know it. How pitiful. Do you know how to break this formation? Yan Xianglou asked helplessly. Yun Tuan said, that's not a formation. It's not a formation, what is it? Although Yan Xianglou was a little surprised, she didn't understand the formation, so it didn't matter if she saw it wrong. It's nothing, it's just a bluff, Yun Tuan said disdainfully. Yan Xianglou's face was covered with black lines. This bluffing posture must be too good, so many strong men and monsters have been bluffed? No way, he looks very powerful, Yan Xianglou said in disbelief as she thought about what she just saw. It's just how powerful you look that can scare people, Yun Tuan said seriously. Yan Xianglou didn't say anything this time. If she continued to speak, the powerful men in the previous continents would all become fools, and she was also one of the fools. She waited quietly for them to find out. People kept coming, and more people came. Finally, someone couldn't bear it anymore and raised his hand to attack the top of the copper pillar, trying to knock down the copper box placed on it. Originally, it was just a try, but the attack actually passed without any obstruction. However, the copper pillar was very strong, and the strong man's power fell on it without any damage. At this time, the crowd and the monster beasts were in a commotion, and the attack power increased, but so much power attacked the copper pillars and copper chains, and the beasts tied to the copper chains were not damaged at all. Everyone was confused. What kind of material is this so strong? The man was still calm and stopped after attacking a few times without any effect. But the monster beasts were not calm. They rushed directly under the copper pillar and slammed into the copper pillar with their strong bodies. More and more monster beasts squeezed in. In an instant, the bottom of the copper pillar was occupied by monster beasts. The copper pillar shook. The strong men suddenly became anxious, and they all jumped into the air and rushed directly to the copper box above. Yan Xianglou felt that her heart, liver, and lungs were about to be shattered by the chaotic force, and she quickly entered the space without waiting for the cloud to remind her. Fortunately, the attention was on the copper box, and no one paid attention to her. Entering the space, she quickly found a pill for treating internal abdominal injuries and took it to calm the pain in her internal organs. Then look outside the space. At this time, the outside was already in chaos. Xuanhuan, who was standing calmly on the outside in such a chaotic situation, was very conspicuous and felt out of place. Those who didn't know better thought he was just here to watch the fun. The strong men flying in the air could not get close to the copper box. It was as if there was some kind of obstacle, forming a protective shield around the copper box. You couldn't get it even if you were close at hand. Seeing the strong men rising in the air, the demonic beasts below became more agitated and used their demonic power to attack the strong men rising in the air. For a while, the scene became even more chaotic. Strong men and monsters kept dying. But the strange thing is that all the dead, whether they are humans or monsters, will disappear. Clouds, how come the dead people and monsters disappeared? Xianxia showed her good habit of asking questions when she doesn't understand. This is a space magic weapon. If you don't want the things inside, just throw them out. Xuanhuan lay on her shoulder and said dully. It cannot be seen outside the owner's space. Xianxia didn't pay attention to the clouds, but she was very interested in this space magic weapon. What level of space magic weapon was it? The owner is no longer here, but it can be controlled so perfectly with just a touch of divine consciousness. The number of people and monsters continues to decrease, but there are still people coming over. Therefore, instead of reducing any monsters outside, there are more and more monsters. However, the strong humans will not take action easily, so the outside has become a place of monsters. On the battlefield, they also started killing each other. After the copper pillar collapsed, the situation outside fell into madness. Everyone and monsters rushed towards the fallen copper box. Such a small copper box, so many monsters and people, Xiang falling again in space, it is impossible to see who got the copper box. I saw a large group of people and monsters rushing towards a passage. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 93. Chapter 93, Snatching Wooden Beads, 5. Xianxia's heart tightened. So many people and monsters poured into the passage at the same time. Even if the passage was not narrow, people would not have the upper hand. Instead, the monsters could charge through with their strong bodies. Just think about it, you all know what kind of miserable situation it will be in the passage. After a while, the originally crowded venue became empty, and she finally saw clearly what the copper pillars surrounding it looked like. The copper pillar, the copper chain, and the 9 beasts tied to the copper chain all fell to the ground. Although it looked a little miserable, nothing was damaged. Just as she was about to go out, she found that 3 relatively calm people were walking towards the fallen copper pillar. It was Xuanhuan, his guards Changfeng and Xian. Xianxia frowned, the clouds formed, the copper pillar fell down, people and monsters chased the person who got the copper box, and Xuanhuan and the other 3 were the only ones left outside. Where is Muzu? The wilting cloud on his shoulders immediately became energetic and said, Master will find an opportunity to go out. I will tell you how to get the wooden beads. Hearing this, Xianxia looked at Xuanhuan and saw that their backs were turned to her, so they ducked out of the space. But she had a keen eye. Xuanhuan and the others had seen Xuanhuan before, and they would guess their identity when they saw Xuanhuan, so she stuffed Xuanhuan into her sleeves when she came out. As soon as she went out, Xuanhuan and the other 2 people suddenly looked over. Her strength is indeed enviable. She carefully restrained her aura, and they discovered her immediately. Thinking that he was now dressed as a young man, even if Xuanhuan saw that he had taken the Yurong Dan, he could not see his true face, and made a regretful expression as if he had just come out of the passage. Hey, am I late? The baby was taken away. Xian looked her up and down and said, Boy, do you, with your 7th level spiritual level cultivation, want to come and seize the treasure? Although it was seen that she was taking Yurong Dan, it was not obvious that she was not a man. Yan Xianglou rolled her eyes at him and said, "What kind of treasure are you trying to get? I cherish my life. I came to Wanghai Forest to experience it. I heard that a treasure from the spirit of wood was born and wanted to come and experience it and see what the treasure is like." Then you're really late. Music. Xian didn't know whether Xiang believed her words, but he didn't take her seriously after seeing her cultivation level. Zhizhong looked at her for a few times and then withdrew his gaze, but did not relax his vigilance. A person with a spiritual level of cultivation could come here alive. He was obviously not a simple person. Even if he was not protected by a strong person, his own body protecting magic weapon, there must be quite a few. Yan Xianglou walked over and looked at the copper pillars, copper chains, and copper beasts that fell on the ground. She didn't see anything. Where are the wooden beads? Just when I was about to ask Yun Tuan, I saw someone coming out of the passage. I saw it was Baitang Yunfen. Didn't I see him just now? He should have gone to chase the person who took the copper box. Why did he come back? Baitang Yunfen was the last one to enter the passage. After taking a look at the situation inside, he realized that even if the copper box really contained the wood spirit treasure, he would not have the life to get it. Between the treasure and life, life is of course more important, so he exited and prepared to find another way to leave, giving up on grabbing the treasure. As soon as he came out, he saw Zhizhong looking at the collapsed copper pillars outside. He suddenly had doubts in his heart. Could there be other treasures? Baitang Yunfen walked over and asked, "Why didn't the regent of Tian shun the wood spirit treasure? His Royal Highness the Crown Prince of Hanqi went away, why did he come back again?" Zhizhong said in a neither soft nor hard tone. Yan Xianglou was speechless, and every word he spoke was a blunt exchange of words. No wonder, they are also young geniuses, they are also high-ranking people, they are sympathetic to each other, and they are also opponents. What did the regent see? Baitang Yunfen smiled and avoided Zhizhong's soft knife, and asked in a seemingly casual tone, even though he knew that others would see something and would not tell him. "Isn't this what you are looking at?" Zhizhong turned his head and ignored Baitang Yunfen. Baitang Yunfen came over with his 5 guards and looked. "Hey, the copper box has been taken away. Why is there still such a strong smell of vegetation here?" Yan Xianglou rolled her eyes in her heart. The wooden beads were still there, and the scent of grass and trees was naturally strong. She looked at the people present. There were 9 people from Zhizhong and Baitang Yunfen. Can she get the wooden beads? At this moment, Yun Tuan's voice sounded in her consciousness, "Master, the wooden bead is in the mouth of the copper column dragon. Master only needs to put a drop of blood on the bead, and after contracting the wooden bead, he can naturally take away the wooden bead pearl." Hearing this, Yan Xianglou looked at the copper pillar that had fallen to the ground. Sure enough, there was a relief. A dragon was riding on clouds and coiled on the pillar. The dragon's mouth was facing the top of the pillar, where the copper box had been placed. There was indeed a dragon in its mouth. The beads are not conspicuous. The dragon and the copper pillar are integrated, and so are the beads. Zhizhong and Baitang Yunfen walked around among the collapsed copper pillars and copper chain beasts, looking for the place where the breath of vegetation came out. Yan Xianglou was also walking around inside, looking at this and that out of curiosity, touching all the copper beasts one by one, and finally walked to the copper pillar and said while touching, "This is what kind of material is it made of? How come it doesn't get damaged at all when it falls?" It's a pity that she was talking to herself and no one answered her. However, Zhizhong glanced at her and moved away from her. Yu Xianglou continued to walk towards the top of the copper pillar, where the dragon head was. He was thinking about how he could get the wooden beads under their noses. Just when she was about to walk to the dragon head, someone else came in from various passages. They must have been late. Yan Xianglou did not hesitate. The more people she waited for, the fewer opportunities she had. She used her spiritual power to open her fingers, and touched the beads in the dragon's mouth with her fingers. In an instant, she felt like her hands were like being sucked onto it. Where the finger was broken, there wasn't just a drop of blood, but a lot of blood was sucked in by the beads. Just as Xuanhuan and Baitangyunfen were looking at the people who came after them, she quickly blocked the bead with her body. Sure enough, a light flashed and the bead disappeared from the dragon's mouth. She felt that there was an extra bead on the flower on her chest. The rich vitality nourished her body, making her feel extremely comfortable. Looking at the dragon's mouth again, it was already empty. If you didn't know there was a dragon ball here before, you wouldn't know that there was a bead here. Yanxiangluo continued walking calmly, still looking around curiously, as if she had found nothing. Xuanhuan turned his head and looked over. The breath of grass and trees disappeared. He could not sense it wrong. He had suspected before that the copper box was not the spirit of wood. After the copper box was taken away, he was sure that the spirit of wood was still here, so he didn't chase him out with the others. But how come the smell of grass and trees disappears when you turn your head? End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 94. Chapter 94, Snatching the Wooden Beads, 6. Besides his people here, they were the people from Baitangyunfen, but the people from Baitangyunfen just turned around and continued to check. No, there was another person. His sharp eyes fell on the red-robed boy. Seeing that he was still looking around, could he have thought wrong? If he got the wood spirit treasure, he wouldn't stay here so calmly. Ran away long ago. However, it is not ruled out that this young man in red robe is calm enough. So he kept watching Yanxiangluo. More and more people gathered later, and they asked each other if they didn't know the situation. At this time, a monster came out from the passage where the monster came in. Yanxiangluo was stunned for a moment, and then she came to her senses. There are people who arrive late, and naturally there are monsters who arrive late. This place is no longer safe for her because of the high-level monsters. She has already obtained the wooden beads, so she should quickly find a chance to leave. But she noticed that Xuanhuan's eyes were always on her, and she knew that he was suspicious of something and could not act rashly. Seeing the monsters coming in, everyone became nervous. They originally thought that 1 or 2 monsters could be eliminated with their strength, but when they saw more and more monsters coming in from behind, their hearts dropped. Even with high cultivation level, one person cannot fight against several high-level monsters. So some people had already turned around and ran into the passage. As soon as someone runs, everyone else also moves back. Yanxiangluo stepped back decisively. With her cultivation level, why didn't she just run away and feed the monsters? The voice of the cloud sounded in her consciousness, "Master, go out through the passage you came in." Yanxiangluo didn't doubt Yun Tuan's words at all. After all, it said that the incoming passage was the safest. Moreover, she has already cleared the level and entered. She shouldn't need to go through the level again when she leaves. Xuanhuan saw that she was about to run away and quickly chased after her. Changfeng and Xian also chased after her without knowing why. Yanxiangluo had already run into the passage while thinking, and the door appeared again, but when she ran over, the door opened. She ran directly in, and the door was closed immediately. When she noticed that the door was closed, she turned her head and took a look. They saw Xuanhuan and 3 others running into the passage. She thought to herself, "It's so suspenseful, he really doubted herself." Xuanhuan's face turned dark when he saw the closed door. Although he didn't know what the wood spirit was this time, it was definitely taken away by the young man in red robe. He was puzzled. How could a young man with a 7th level spiritual level find the wood spirit and take it away quietly in such a short time? Obviously he had checked very carefully and didn't find anything. Since the wood spirit has been taken away, there is no point in worrying about it. This place is very unusual, so it is better to leave quickly. Without hesitation, he led Changfeng and Xian out of this passage and ran towards the passage where they came in. The familiar passage should leave the fastest, just like the red-robed boy just now. He remembered that he was come out of that passage. It's strange, why is there no door in the passage they took? Obviously, the young man in red robe could open the door. Although he only took a glance at it, the door was tightly sealed, just like a copper plate. It would take a lot of time to open it. No wonder he came out so late. At this time, Yan Xianglou ran quickly in the passage. Although Ji Zhizhong was locked out, she was not sure whether he could open it. Even if he couldn't open it, there were other passages to leave, so she had to use the fastest speed leave here, otherwise Ji Zhizhong will definitely be waiting for her outside. She came out very quickly, without any obstacles along the way. Both doors opened automatically when she ran to them. When she came out of the passage, it was the palace door she came in from. There was no one there, so she didn't stop, and her speed didn't slow down at all. Ran out of the palace. I was stunned as soon as I came out. There were a lot of corpses outside, including those of humans and monsters, all piled together like a hill. Sure enough, just as Yun Tuan said, the space magic weapon threw out all these corpses. Although she knew that many people and monsters would die, she was still shocked when she saw the actual number. They are just monsters. After all, their intelligence is limited, but don't these strong men have brains? Even if they knew that the spirit of wood was the wooden bead among the 5 elements beads, would they risk their lives to get it? She didn't understand it, but she cherished her life very much anyway. Yan Xianglou was just stunned for a moment, and her thoughts flashed by. Without stopping, she walked around the mountain of corpses, took out her guide and ran towards the place where she entered in Wanghai Forest. If you want to leave Wanghai Forest, you can't do it in a day or two, and it will take 10 days without stopping day and night. This is already the deepest part of Wanghai Forest. The spirit of the wood has been taken away by her, and the monsters will gradually return to their normal lives. High-level monsters will appear immediately, but it won't be as easy as when Tathagata came. Therefore, she wanted to run out of the most dangerous area before the monsters came out. Yun Tuan, you are so awesome, it is indeed the nearest passage and no one has come out. Only then did Yan Xianglou remember the Yun Tuan she had hidden in her sleeve, and took it out and put it on her shoulder. This is also Yun Tuan's favorite place. That's what I was more powerful in the past. After saying this, I remembered that I had forgotten all the previous things, and I couldn't continue what I said next. Yan Xianglou noticed that the cloud's breath was a little low and quickly comforted it. I will remember it in the future, and you will be as powerful as before. No, you will be even more powerful. Yet after hearing Yan Xianglou's comforting words, Yun Tuan became energetic again. As long as its strength is restored, its natural memory will come back. Yan Xianglou discovered that Yun Tuan's emotions left as quickly as they came. Ji Zhizhong came out of the passage and saw people running out of the passage one after another. They were all in a state of embarrassment. Some people were even seriously injured, and some were missing arms. He understood that this passage was where the person who got the copper box ran in. With so many monsters and strong men pouring in, there must be heavy casualties. What he didn't know was that originally there wouldn't be so many dead people and monsters, but it was the same in the passage. Anyone who died and monsters would be thrown out by the space magic weapon. After those people discovered this, they started killing. Whether it's a human or a monster, this is the fastest way to clear the passage. That's why there was a mountain of corpses piled up like a hill outside that Yan Xianglou saw. Ji Zhizhong ignored those people and hurried out to look for the red-robed young man. He didn't want the wood spirit treasure, but wanted to buy it from him or exchange it with the treasure he wanted. When I went out and saw the tall mountain of corpses, I was stunned for a moment. I was obviously surprised that all these corpses were outside. However, he was just stunned for a moment and started looking for the young man in red robe. He couldn't find him. Did he not come out yet? Xuanhuan turned around and looked at the palace behind, found a suitable place, let go of his consciousness and looked at the two human exits. He didn't know which door the red-robed boy would come out of. End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 95. Chapter 95 Wood Power. But after waiting for a long time, he didn't see him come out. The sky was already whitening and it was about to dawn. Xuanhuan understood that the young man should have come out earlier than him. He didn't know how far he had run now. It was impossible to find anyone anymore. That young man has taken the Yurong Dan. There is no guarantee that he will not change his face again. Even if he does not change his face and returns to his original appearance, he will not recognize it. Even with a high level of cultivation, you can only tell that he has taken the disguise pill, but cannot see his true face. Xuanhuan sighed in his heart. With so many strong men, the spirit of wood was actually taken away by a young man with a 7th level spiritual level. It was a bit embarrassing to think about it. However, only he knows about this, and he will naturally not tell it. However, I was still curious about which family the boy belonged to. The family kept such a figure so tightly that they didn't reveal it at all. This shows how much the family values and protects her. However, I have to admit that the young man's ability is indeed not small. He admires him for being able to take away the wood spirit under his nose. There are not many people who can admire him. It's useless to think about anything now, and I don't want to stay anymore. I leave here with Changfeng and Xian. However, he drew attention to the fact that there were teenagers in that family who liked to wear red robes. No matter how well a person hides himself, it's hard to change his preferences. That red robe is not something a person who likes to hide would choose. That's just what he likes. When Xianxia came out of the palace in embarrassment, her face was very bad. She had placed all her hopes on the wood spirit, but she didn't get it. The most important thing is that she didn't know who took it, and she didn't know who to look for. She used almost all the protective magic weapons given to her by her family and narrowly saved her life. This trip to Wanghai Forest to the wood spirit could be said to be a complete failure. Yan Xiangluo didn't know what happened after she left. At this time, she was still using her energy to run away. She ran from dawn to dawn before stopping to rest for a while. At this time, she had left the most dangerous place in Wanghai Forest. He felt relieved and thought about his own dress. He went into the space and changed into a blue woman's dress. Then he took another disguise pill and changed his face. This was to avoid meeting Xuanhuan again. She discovered that she didn't know what fate she had with Xuanhuan. When she came to this world, she met him the few times she came out. No matter how she used appearance and identity. If we meet again, it is not impossible. After packing up, she came out of the space. Since she was leaving Wanghai Forest, she didn't let Xuanhuan play, and just came back when she left the forest. Xuanhuan was naturally having fun playing, and the speed was so fast. Yan Xiangluo wondered what was so attractive about Xuanhuan, making him want to play so much. She took out some food and felt the wooden beads while eating. The wooden beads are the same as the fire beads. At this time, they are on the petals carrying the pangu flower blooming technique. 2 of the 5 petals already have 5-element beads on them. There is a petal between the wooden beads and the fire beads. It seems that the beads did not fall on that petal randomly, but should be arranged in order. Gold, wood, water, fire, earth. There is a water drop between wood and fire, so the empty petals between them should be reserved for water droplets. Is it still possible for me to collect all the 5 elements beads? Yan Xiangluo suddenly had this idea in her mind. When she got the fire beads before, She just thought she was lucky. She met a cloud and got the fire beads, but she really didn't expect to collect all the 5 elements beads. But after getting the wooden beads this time, she felt that it was very possible to collect all the 5 elements beads. Furthermore, the 5 elements beads are automatically inlaid on the petals. Is there any connection between the pangu flower blooming technique and the 5 elements beads? Coupled with the 3 tests she encountered in the palace, the more she thought about it, the more doubts she had. Now no one could answer her questions, so she could only take one step at a time. Let's look at what's in front of us first. Her fire element strength has been enhanced by contracting the fire beads. Now that she has contracted the wood beads, will her wood element strength also be enhanced? She was eating food with one hand and twirling her fingers with the other hand. She threw out a beam of wood power and landed on the weeds nearby. The weeds instantly struggled to grow at a speed visible to the naked eye, reaching a full length. It stopped when it was 1 meter high. Xianxia stopped eating. Oh my God, has the power of the wood element increased so much? You must know that she just threw out a few pieces of wood power, and actually made the weeds grow 1 meter high. This is much more intuitive than the fire power. I am going to become a little expert in planting. Thinking of the medicinal herbs grown in the space, because there is no light in the space, they can only be kept as they are planted. If they have their own wood power, can they also grow? Thinking of it, she tried it. She threw out a bunch of wood-type power and landed on a medicinal plant in the space. She didn't dare to throw more. If the medicinal plant grew too big, it would be very scary. Besides, there was no need. She mainly wanted to see if she could improve the efficacy of the medicinal herbs. For an alchemist, this is the most important thing. The power of the wood element fell on the medicinal materials. The medicinal materials did not grow 1 meter high like weeds, but only grew about an inch or more in height. However, the age of the medicinal materials increased significantly, and they grew for at least 3 years. In other words, because weeds only need nutrients to grow taller, they grow in height so suddenly. What medicinal herbs need is medicinal properties, so the height is extremely small, but the medicinal efficacy increases more. Great, it seems that the power of wood is reflected differently in different plants, and is improved according to the value of the plants. In this way, if she needs older medicinal materials, she only needs to use the power of wood. She was extremely happy, feeling in her heart that the greatest treasure she possessed was not the pangu flower blooming technique, nor the fire beads and wooden beads, but clouds. Clouds are her biggest and most precious treasure. She was in a good mood and had changed her clothes and face. She was not worried about being recognized when she met Jijuzhong, so she walked out generously while practicing. 2 days later, Yanxiangluo found a cave to rest at night. The cave was just to hide the space she entered at night. She has encountered this cave before. She has lived in it for 1 night and knows that no monsters live in it. So she went in directly today. After entering, she found someone's breath inside, and her footsteps suddenly stopped. There was someone inside, and the breath was very unstable. He must have been seriously injured, and he could be said to be on the verge of death. Having already come in, Yanxiangluo could only bite the bullet and continue walking inside. Through the faint light from the entrance of the cave, I saw a man lying on the floor of the cave. His body was covered in blood, and an arm was missing. His breath was very weak. He was lying on the ground. There must be something pressed under his chest. It could be seen from his posture. I want to protect the things in my arms. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 96. Chapter 96 Your Opportunity. Hearing the noise, He opened his eyes with difficulty and looked over, and saw that it was a little girl. Although her cultivation level was not high, she was already pretty good for her age. The two of them just looked at each other. Xianxia didn't speak, and she didn't know how to speak. After a while, the man's weak voice came. "Little girl, this may be your opportunity." The man could see that the little girl in front of him had clear eyes and was not a greedy person. Since he is going to die and he can't keep this treasure, he should give it to this little girl in exchange for not being left dead in the wilderness and eaten by monsters. He had a treasure ring, but it was on the hand of the arm that was cut off, so he could only run away with the treasure. Xianxia said carefully, "Senior, are you seriously injured? Do you need any medicine? Let me see if I have it." These words were sincere. Xianxia did not see any greed or viciousness in this man, so she was willing to help him. The man shook his head. "No pills are of any use to me. My longevity is about to expire. This time I came to compete for the wood spirit because I am a wood type power. I want to use the wood spirit to break through the last hurdle and increase my longevity. You can also go to the higher continent that I have longed for. I killed the opponent in the final battle, but because of the previous injury, my spiritual root was completely destroyed by the opponent, and there was no cure. I will give this treasure to you. I just hope that you can help me bury the body." With his spiritual roots destroyed and all his cultivation lost, he no longer had the strength to dispose of his own body in the end. He thought he was going to die in the wilderness or be eaten by a spiritual beast, but unexpectedly he met a little girl. As soon as the man finished speaking, he turned over and lay flat, with the things under him exposed. Xianxia was shocked. The copper box was actually the copper box that had been robbed. 2 days later, it was in her hands again. This man turned out to be the strong man who stole the wood spirit. It's a pity that although he got it, he had no chance to use it. Although she knew that there were no wooden beads in the copper box, she was also curious about what was in the box. It couldn't be empty anyway. "Senior, can I take your pulse and see if there is any hope?" Xianxia didn't want to take other people's things for free. The man smiled. "The little girl is still kind-hearted. I appreciate your kindness. I can meet you at the end of my life. This good relationship with you makes me feel very comforted. I can die in peace. I know my body is at the end of the war. Well, I'll be very grateful as long as the little girl buries my body." Seeing his persistence, she knew with her many years of medical experience that this man was just holding on for a breath. "Senior, don't worry, I will find a suitable place to bury you outside the cave, and I will ensure that monsters will not destroy your body," Xianxia said solemnly. This is Xuanhuan Forest, and she can't find any coffin to bury him. She can only ensure that his body is not destroyed by monsters. The man nodded, no longer holding on, and showed a smile. His eyes were unfocused and he slowly closed them, but the corners of his mouth were curved up. It was obvious that he was in a good mood when he left. Xianxia let out a long breath. At this time, she understood that among the people who came to the wood spirit, there were not only greedy people, but also some helpless people who had no way to go. It's death anyway, so why not give it a try? This is the life of a monk in a fantasy world. She didn't know whether the joy of becoming a monk at the beginning of her life was directly proportional to the helplessness and sadness at the end of her life, but she felt uncomfortable just looking at other people's lives. What day would she reach? Xianxia first put the box into the space, and then found a piece of her father's robe in the space. It was new and unworn, and she covered the man with it. This was the best she could do for him. Then she went out to find a place, dug a deep pit, and buried the man in it. No one would leave this place easily, and no monsters would come. She didn't leave any graves, and no one would come visit the grave. But she transplanted a wild small tree next to it, used the power of wood to revive the small tree, and allowed the tree to grow to a height she was satisfied with, so that no one or monster would come. After everything was done, she sighed deeply. The senior did not say his name, but it goes without saying that she knew that the person who could grab the copper box from a lot of strong people must be the strongest in the mainland. One of the strong ones. It is a pity that a generation of strong men finally died in such a helpless and sad way. And the person he killed must also be a strong man in the mainland. How many strong men were lost in the mainland this time because of the wooden beads? After burying the man, Xianxia returned to the cave, entered the space, and looked at the copper box she had put in before. The box is 1½ her palms long, 1 palm high and wide, and it is not light to hold. There are no patterns on the box, and there is no lock. It is not even divided into upper and lower parts. How to open it? I have been thinking about it for a while, but I have no clue. Forget it, let's leave it for now and wait for the cute Xuanhuan to come back and ask it. Thinking of the clouds, her eyes lit up. She remembered that both the fire beads and the wooden beads required a contract. Does this box also need a contract if there is no way to open it? In the fantasy books I read in my previous life, weren't there some weird treasures that were discovered only after being inadvertently contracted? She shouldn't wait for the unintentional contract, she should come directly. Thinking of this, she took out a silver needle and pricked her finger. A drop of blood fell on the box, but there was no movement. Another drop. If there was no movement, then another drop. If it didn't work, she was ready to stop. Her blood gold is precious and cannot be wasted. The third drop of blood fell on the box, and the box emitted a light, the light of the contract, and then the box opened with a snap. It's just that the way it was opened was a bit unexpected. It was opened flat. The box was like a piece of paper with the certificate spread out. Those who didn't know better thought this box was made of paper. Looking at the things inside, why is it a small house? When I picked it up and took a look, it was not just a house, but it was not an ordinary house, but a palace. Why did this palace look familiar? Oh my God, isn't this a miniature version of the palace where they went to find the wooden beads? Why is there a miniature palace in the box? Is it really just to attract attention? Xianxia took the palace and looked left and right. It was also made of copper. The 4 doors in the 4 directions were clearly visible. If it hadn't been too small, it could have been the palace she entered at that time. She lifted the palace up and pushed the door of the palace with her hand, wanting to see what was inside, but she didn't push it open. Like the shadow of a palace reflected in the eyes of a pool of spring water, what is the significance of this smaller version of the palace? End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 97. Chapter 97 Brothers and Sisters. Suddenly, Xianxia remembered what Xuanhuan said, that the palace was a high-level space magic weapon. From the fantasy knowledge she accumulated from reading, the space magic weapon had a body, just like a high-level space like Pangu space. You still need a carrier. Could this miniature version of the palace be the body of the space magic weapon? If that's the case, can I also contract this palace magic weapon? Although she has Pangu space, no other space magic weapon can catch her eye, but this palace space magic weapon is different from ordinary space magic weapons that can only hold things. It can actually set levels, which is strange. Without asking Xuanhuan, she also knew that although it could not be compared with Pangu space, it was not an ordinary space magic weapon, even in higher continents. His burning eyes fell on the palace. This time, he didn't care about the preciousness of his own blood. He pricked his finger and dropped it drop by drop on the palace. After more than a dozen drops of blood, there was finally movement in the palace, and the light of the contract lit up. Immediately, the miniature version of the palace flew up, getting bigger and bigger, and finally landed heavily on the ground in space. Yu Xiangloo felt that her whole body was numb. A few tremors followed. It can be seen how hard the palace fell and how heavy it was. At the same time, the palace located in Wanghai Forest suddenly disappeared, leaving the scattered people who rushed to seize the treasure to check the situation at the scene in shock. When they arrived, the door of the palace had been closed. They had no idea what was going on inside. They only saw a mountain of corpses mixed with people and animals. Before they could figure out what was going on, they suddenly saw the mountain with their own eyes. The bronze palace disappeared out of thin air, and they were all frightened. Even those with strong cultivation levels were no exception. They all felt like a cool breeze was blowing on their backs. This was obviously not something they as a whole mainland could do, so they didn't care about checking anything, so they left quickly. They arrived too late anyway, and the wood spirit had already been taken away. Even if we continue to investigate and find something, we won't be able to get the wood spirit, and our lives may be in danger. In the blink of an eye, the place where the palace originally stood became empty, with nothing left except the pile of corpses. Time will cover up all traces. It won't be long before a patch of weeds and wild plants will grow here, and these corpses will not exist for long. They will become food for other monsters. By then, everything that has happened here will disappear completely. At this time, looking at the familiar palace in Pangu space, Yan Xianglue was extremely excited. She felt very uneasy and a little scared when she saw it before. Now that the palace belongs to her, she has nothing to be afraid of. The most important thing is that the box of the previous contract grew larger as the palace grew larger, and then fell to the ground to serve as the foundation for the palace. Looking like two separate entities, they are actually one. After all, she did contract in two parts. Now that the palace is hers, facing it again, the entire internal structure of the palace is in her consciousness, and she has no fear in her heart. Going to the palace door, the door opened automatically. When we walked in, the palace was different from before. There were no passages. It was just an empty and spacious palace with nothing in it. She came in through the south door, and the other three doors were closed. After walking in, a pillar of light fell from the top of the palace, and a handsome man wearing a wide, snow-white robe appeared in the pillar of light. Yan Xianglue looked at the man in the pillar of light in surprise. The palace was contracted by her, so why were there other people inside? No, it was not a human being, it should be a shadow. She suddenly realized, could it be the one left by the original owner of the palace? A phantom formed by divine consciousness? The man was suspended in the beam of light and looked at Yan Xianglue. As soon as he raised his hand, Yan Xianglue's appearance changed to her original appearance after taking the disguise pill. Yan Xianglue clearly felt that the effect of the disguise pill on her body had disappeared. Oh my God, is this the strength of a powerful person in the higher world? The spiritual consciousness left behind after death is so powerful? The man looked at her face with indescribable emotions in his eyes. After so many lives, junior sister, you are still so special. You can cultivate the waste body of the 5 spiritual roots to such a state. Master is right, you have the strongest cultivation talent among us. We didn't understand this sentence before. It means that our talents are obviously better than yours, and now I understand. The cultivation talents that Master talks about are not the talents given by God when we awaken our spiritual roots, but the acquired hard work, persistence, and patience. Yan Xianglue didn't answer. The meaning behind his words was that he knew him, or were they still brothers and sisters a few lifetimes ago? Why don't you think it's so fantasy? Why do you feel that something is going wrong? Forget that you can't remember the past now. I hope you can complete what our senior brothers and sisters failed to complete. When you remember me, I really want to know if you will cry. Unfortunately, I have no way of knowing, the man said in a tone full of memories and regrets. You want me to cry? Yan Xianglue finally spoke. The man was very surprised. He didn't expect that the first thing Yan Xianglou said to him was this. Then he fell into entanglement and sighed for a while. I don't hope, but I hope, but it doesn't matter. The space magic weapon that was once disliked by my junior sister now belongs to my junior sister. I will be very content to have him accompany you for me in the future. Yan Xianglou wondered why the man was so entangled. Since I can be reincarnated, so can you. Maybe we will see each other again. The man paused and said, Junior sister, my senior brother and my master will never be reincarnated. Don't ask me why. The level of the continent you are in is too low. That is not what you can know now. I will follow you to higher levels in the future continent. One day you will get your memory back. I know the reason. I just hope you won't cry then. That's what we don't want to see. Before Yan Xianglou could ask anything, the man continued, the power of spiritual consciousness I left behind just wants to see you again, and I have already got my wish. The level of my space magic weapon is too high and cannot be displayed on this continent. You will make new discoveries when you go to higher continents in the future. I won't say more, junior sister, don't dislike my space magic weapon anymore, it is the only thought I leave for you. As the words fell, the man's figure slowly began to fade. Although Yan Xianglou didn't know what was going on, she felt very sad when she saw the man disappearing. Although I have no previous memories, I feel very uncomfortable at this time. Maybe it is the emotion in the memory of my soul. Since you call me junior sister, then I will call you senior brother. I will cherish the space method that senior brother left for me. I won't dislike it, said Yan Xianglou. The man's increasingly pale figure showed a clear smile. Junior sister, even if you don't have the memory of the past, you are still the same person you used to be. Beautiful ladies, Happy New Year. May your health be great, your career go smoothly, your love be sweet, your family be happy and sweet, and all your wishes come true. End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 98. Chapter 98 I want him to die. While speaking, the man made a heart-warming gesture with his hands. This action made Yan Xianglou stunned. The phrase "Open Sesame" in the previous checkpoint set up in the palace, and the heart-warming gestures made by the man now are not what this world should have. While she was stunned, the man's figure completely disappeared. Yan Xianglou chased for a few steps and then stopped, letting go of her consciousness to perceive the entire space magic weapon. In addition to the breath of the space instrument itself, nothing can be sensed. The man really disappeared completely, and no one could answer her doubts. Perhaps only by reaching the height that the man said and recovering the memory he said could she know the answer. Yan Xianglou was in a very low mood. It seemed that the man's appearance had affected her mood, but she knew that she had nothing to do with the man. This emotion came from the depths of her soul, a sad feeling engraved in her soul. Perhaps what the man said is true. He has experienced many lives, but why does he only have the memory of the last life? What happened in that life that made master and brothers lose the chance to reincarnate? Originally, she thought she was just lucky. She died in her previous life and was reincarnated directly, but now it seems that things are not that simple. If you want to know the reason, you can only practice harder and reach that height one day and retrieve your past memories. Sigh, she sighed heavily. Originally, she wanted to pursue the path of being strong and live her whole life freely, but why was this path becoming more and more wrong? Now she has a difficult task on her shoulders that she doesn't even know about. His spiritual consciousness inspected the palace, and Yan Xianglou knew why the palace looked like this. Due to mainland-level restrictions, this space can only be an empty room now. As for the function of the palace magic weapon, it is still unknown. You can only find out when you go to a higher continent. Such a large palace cannot be used as a house. It is too spacious, so it can only be placed in the space first. After going out, she looked back at the palace. Although she could restore the palace to its smallest state, after seeing that she had a palace in her dark space, it looked decent, so she left it as it was. The copper-colored palace and a large green medicinal field are a bit like the night castle in fairy tales, with only a crescent moon missing. Even so, it is quite beautiful. Since there is a palace here, although it is a bit empty, it is smaller than the space anyway, so don't practice by the medicine field tonight. Xianxia turned around and returned to the palace, took out a cushion, sat cross-legged on it, took out Jiyan and looked at it. The body absorbs the spiritual energy on its own. After a night, I don't feel tired at all, but feel very energetic. Standed up, stretched, ate something, and prepared to go out and continue on the road. Thinking that the effect of the disguise pill had been neutralized by the owner of the original palace magic weapon who claimed to be her senior brother yesterday, she took out another disguise pill and drank it. This time she has a very ordinary face, and her presence is so low that no one should notice her. After getting ready, he left the space and left the cave. He looked at the place where the man was buried last night. The transplanted tree was growing very lush, so he turned around and left. The further you go out of the forest, the lower the level of the monsters and the higher the safety factor. The accumulation of spiritual energy is faster than before. The obstacles in the second level of the Pangu flower blooming technique seem to be weaker. She didn't know whether it was because of the contract with the wooden beads or the contract with the palace space magic weapon, but she was more inclined to the former. A few days later, when she left Wanghai Forest, although her cultivation level was still at the 7th level of the spiritual level, she was already at the peak of the 7th level. She breathed a sigh of relief. At least she was not so slow that she would not advance in a few years. When she was happy not to meet Xuanhuan again, she saw Xianxia. Xianxia stopped by Tang Yunfan, who had just come out of Wanghai Forest. One look at her expression showed that something was up to her. She didn't want to lose her life by being innocently implicated. Yuan Xiangluo quickly entered the space. Sure enough, as soon as she entered, Xianxia and Bai Tang Yunfan looked at her at the same time, and turned away after finding nothing. Bai Tang Yunfan glanced at Xianxia. If Miss Qin doesn't go after Zhizhikong, why are you stopping His Highness? Xianxia looked very calm, as if she was not affected by Bai Tang Yunfan's slightly mocking words. His Royal Highness, Prince Hankai, has always regarded Zhizhikong as his opponent. I have a way for you to hit him if you use it properly. It is possible to kill him, Your Highness. Are you willing to join forces with me? Bai Tang Yunfan's eyes changed. It was no secret that Xianxia liked Zhizhikong. Not only the people in Tianshan Imperial City knew it, but also those who paid attention to Zhizhikong knew it. How could she help him harm Zhizhikong? He chuckled and said, Miss Qin's words may have gone too far. Although His Highness does not like Zhizhikong, it is just because he wants to know who is stronger, and it does not rise to the level of life and death. Besides, Hanqi and Tianshan has been a friendly country for more than 100 years, but Miss Qin's words may provoke a war between the two countries, so it is better to be cautious. Xianxia knew that it was impossible to convince Bai Tang Yunfan at once. I just want to find someone to join forces with to vent my anger. I think Prince Hanqi is suitable. If His Highness the Prince is worried, forget it. It's a pity that I have no chance of defeating your biggest rival in Hanqi. However, when will His Highness the Prince want to cooperate with me? You can come to me. His Royal Highness should know where to find me. Xianxia didn't say anything more after finishing her sentence, turned around and left, as if she was not asking for mercy. Bai Tang Yunfan was speechless, looking at Xianxia's leaving back with deep eyes. Xianxia is indeed not a simple person, and every simple sentence has deep meaning. He also uses the conditions he cares most about to tempt himself. It's a pity. What I disdain the most is to cooperate with someone like her, unless I am forced into a desperate situation. However, he was curious whether what Xianxia did was a trap arranged by Jizhong or if something really happened that made Xianxia hate Jizhong to the point where she wanted him dead. Send someone to find out what happened between Xianxia and Jizhong, by Tang Yunfan immediately ordered. Jizhong broke off the engagement with his fiancée last year. Logically speaking, Xianxia should have gotten what she wanted, but why did she become an enemy instead? Even though Yan Xiangleo was a little far away from the two of them and she was in space, she could still hear the conversation between the two. She was wondering, Xianxia's family obviously sided with Jizhong, was it her family's intention or was she a private decision? Alas, Jizhong looked at the high weight, and this day was not good. He still wanted to kill him. This is equivalent to betrayal. I don't know if he can cope. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 99. Chapter 99, Yunya Poisoning, 1. Yan Xiangleo shook her head. Why was she thinking so much? What did Jizhong's matter have to do with her? What Xianxia did to her, she had already repaid in retaliation. As long as she stopped provoking him, she didn't have the time. Go plot against her. Although she knew that Xianxia's change was probably related to the spirit-breaking pill she gave her, she could only blame her for her inferior skills. In this round of fighting with her, Xianxia, was completely defeated. As for implicating Jizhong, she doesn't feel any embarrassment. It was because of him that she was plotted by Xianxia. If she hadn't been lucky enough to meet Xianxia and know that it was her who gave her the Dangxuan Xian mark, she might have lost her life in this life. She didn't even know who wanted to harm her. She and Jizhong are also at odds with each other. You implicate me once and I will implicate you once. As for whether Jizhong can be lucky enough to avoid Xianxia's scheme, that is his business. Leave the space, call Yun Tuan back, take out the array disk, and directly return to the Qiandu Peak of the Immortal Cloud section. Looking at the Qiandu Peak, which he has not seen for more than 3 months, a feeling of intimacy arises spontaneously. Unfortunately, the master was not there. She went to take a bath and change clothes, and when she came out, she saw the handyman disciple waiting outside her door. Seeing her coming out, he quickly reported, "Uncle Yu, this is the letter that senior brother Jin left for uncle." Yan Xiangleo looked at the letter in his hand with confusion. When Jin Xinran came to her retreat before, she just went back. Why did she leave a letter this time? When did she come? Yan Xiangleo asked after taking the letter. 7 days ago, the handyman disciple replied honestly. Now Yan Xiangleo is not the weakling who just entered the sect who they looked down upon because of his low cultivation level. This time he came out of seclusion, his strength and coercion became stronger, and he must have advanced again. In the past 2 years, they have also learned a lot of rumors about Yan Xiangleo. Rumor has it that the fiancée of the regent of Tianshan Kingdom, Nuan Xiangleo, is a waste with 5 spiritual roots. Her cultivation level has not improved for 10 years. However, what they saw was that she was promoted to several levels a year. They didn't know if this Nuan Xiangleo was the other person. The fragrance falls. The most important thing is that Jizhong, the regent of Tianshan Kingdom, didn't like her and broke off the engagement because of it. However, Jizhong came to Xianyun sect to visit Yu Xiangleo twice, and once even stayed for 1 night. What the hell? Do you like it or don't like it? Even if you are a person who is highly valued by your family, no one from your family comes to visit you every year. Therefore, they now have no slack in treating Yan Xiangleo, and they don't dare to look down on her. They knew that Jizhong came to seek medical treatment. Yan Xiangleo opened the letter and read it. Jin Xinrong told her that she had something to do at home and had gone home. He was worried that she would not be able to find her after leaving the country, so he left a letter telling her that he would be back in about a month. The letter was left 7 days ago, which means that Jin Xinrong has been gone for 7 days and will not be back for more than 20 days. I have been in seclusion for more than 3 months. Has anything happened in the sect? Yan Xianglou asked. The handyman disciple looked serious and replied, to tell you what Master Uncle said, nothing major happened in the section. It was just that after the sect disciples returned from training, Miao Changjai, the direct disciple of Xuanhuan Peak, was punished by the sect leader to be locked up in the back mountain pass. It hasn't come out yet. Miao Nagano was locked up? For what reason are you punishing him? Yan Xianglou asked again. It seems that Baitang Yunyu of Xuanhuan Peak almost died during the training. I don't know the details. There is not much information that the handyman disciple can know. Although he is an errand in the inner sect, he is not allowed to work at will. Inner door walk. The only way he can know this information is that he has a good relationship with the handyman disciple of the Xuanhuan section. If he knows, that handyman disciple also knows this. Yan Xianglou frowned. She didn't understand. Miao Changjai was obviously a reborn child of destiny. Why didn't he make good use of the prophetic conditions of rebirth to improve his cultivation? Why did he always keep his eyes on Baitang Yun? What about Jade? What was it for this time that almost killed Baitang Yunyu? Do you know how Baitang Yunyu is doing? Yan Xianglou was a little worried about Baitang Yunyu. The handyman disciples shook their heads and said, I don't know. The handyman disciples from Xuanhuan Peak said that they have never seen him since they came back from training. I haven't seen anyone since. It's obvious that he was seriously injured. She waved her hand to let the handyman disciples go about their business. She put away the letter Jin Xinrong gave her and saw her master returning from the sky. Master Yan Xianglou greeted him happily. Deng Chang sensed that his apprentice was back, so he hurried back. I've been promoted again. Deng Chang looked at the young apprentice, who was filled with joy and felt very happy. Although this girl didn't say anything, he could tell that since she entered the 5th level of the spiritual level, her advancement was not as fast as before. It should be due to the skills she learned. He couldn't help, he could only look at her. That's why he agreed to let her go to Wanghai Forest to practice alone. What pleased him was that the young disciple's perseverance was not ordinary. The more difficulties she encountered, the stronger her drive became. Look, this time the sect disciple went to practice for only 1 month, but she experienced 3 after many months. He not only advanced to the 1st level, but also reached the peak of the 7th level of the spiritual level. This kind of resilience is not something that ordinary people can have. Well, Master, I heard that something happened to Master Baitang's nephew. How is he? Yan Xianglou saw that the direction Master was returning from was Xuanhuan Peak, thinking that Master should know something about the situation. It's not good. He was poisoned. When his poison came back, it had already invaded his heart and Danshan. Even the master couldn't immediately refine the detoxification pill to detoxify his body. The master had suppressed it by the regent of Tianshun before he saw you. Poison, is there a way for Yunyu to suppress the poison in this way? This will give the master time to refine the detoxification pill. Deng Chang's frowned, obviously he had spent a lot of time on Baitang Yunyu's poison. I'll have to see it to know if it works. Yan Xianglou didn't see it with her own eyes, so she didn't dare to confirm it. Deng Chang's immediately said, let's go and have a look now. After saying that, he took Yan Xianglou and went straight to Xuanhuan Peak Yukong. Once the master Xianxia was crying in his hand, he was crying without tears. Master, have you forgotten that I have the flying spirit beast you sent? This will hurt the little apprentice. It must be that Baitang Yunyu's condition is very bad, that's why the master is so worried. Deng Chang's carried his young apprentice directly to the place where Yunyu lived in Baitang. When he put her down, he saw her aggrieved look. He coughed slightly in embarrassment and said, things are urgent. Next time I am in a hurry, Master won't carry you like this. Yan Xianglou glanced at the direct disciples of Xuanhuan Peak who were looking at their master and apprentice outside the door. She was speechless and said, Master, aren't we going to see Baitang's nephew? Yes. Deng Chang's immediately led her towards the door. Zhang Qinghao, the eldest disciple of the sect leader who was guarding the door, quickly opened the door. Seeing that Yu Xianglou was about to go in, he stopped her and said, Uncle Yu, let's wait outside. End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 100. Chapter 100 Yunyu Poisoning, 2. Yan Xianglou glanced at him. Deng Chang's, who had already entered before she could say anything, turned back to her and said, Xiaoluo come in quickly. Yan Xianglou shrugged at Zhang Qinghao who stopped her, Senior nephew Zhang, my master asked me to go in. Zhang Qinghao awkwardly stepped aside and let her in. After she entered and closed the door, Zhang Qinghao said to the 4 junior brothers behind him, What are you doing in here, master uncle? There are 7 direct disciples of the sect master in total. One of them is lying in the room due to poisoning, and the other one is missing from the back of the mountain, so there are only 5 of them left. The 4 of them shook their heads together. The 3rd disciple Yang Hongyi said, although I don't know what she went in for, didn't you realize that her cultivation level is already at the 7th level of the spiritual level? They have never seen Yan Xianglou since her first sect experience. I haven't seen her for a year and 2 months now. Before, I always thought that her cultivation talent was too poor, which is why she did not participate in the sect competition and this experience. But when I saw her today, I found that she was not what the rumors said. His cultivation level has improved by leaps and bounds. Is it really such a coincidence that she did not participate in the sect competition and training because she was in seclusion and did not come out? Lao Si's eyes were a little wandering, and he said weakly, he's grown taller and looks better. Several people suddenly looked at him, and he said weakly, didn't you notice? Although Yan Xianglou is younger than them, he is a senior uncle and is senior to them. No matter how good looking he is, they cannot have any thoughts. The speechless people turned their heads and stopped looking at him. They all listened to the movement in the room with their ears raised. After Yang Xiang fell in, she realized that there were quite a few people in the room. Not only was the sect leader there, but Grandmaster Qin He was also there, as well as the peak masters from other peaks. This shows how much they take this matter seriously. She quickly saluted Master Qin He and said, Xianglou has met Master Qin He. Master Qin He waved to her, I'm out of seclusion and promoted again. Indeed, I have been promoted to the next level, Yan Xianglou responded. Yes, Xiaoluo your master said that your acupuncture technique can suppress poison, Master Qin He asked as he glanced at Baitang Yunyu who was lying on the bed. It is indeed possible to return to master, but it depends on the degree of poisoning, Yan Xianglou said respectfully, and glanced at Baitang Yunyu lying on the bed. The exposed skin is black and green. What kind of poison is this? It seems so serious. Come and show it to Yunyu boy. If you can save him, Xiaoluo can help Xuanhuan sect survive the disaster, Master Qin He said solemnly. Yu Xianglou was stunned for a moment and realized that it was because of Baitang Yunyu's identity. Death would be fine if you experienced it normally, but it would be different if Baitang Yunyu was harmed by his senior brother. No matter how much Emperor Han Qi didn't care about his son, he would not allow anyone to slap him in the face. If Baitang Yunyu really dies, it will be difficult for the Xuanhuan sect to explain. Okay, Yan Xianglou responded and walked over. The sect master and several peak masters immediately gave up their positions. Even the master of Tianshui Peak, Miao Yu, no longer despised her as before. After all, no one wanted to save Baitang Yunyu more than she did. That involved, will her nephew Miao Nagano survive? She looked at Ruan Xianglou with complicated eyes. She hadn't seen Ruan Xianglou for more than a year. She didn't expect that her cultivation level had advanced so quickly. She was already at the 7th level of the spiritual level. Although her cultivation level was higher than that of a disciple of the Xuanhuan section, the middle level is not considered high, but she was only at the 3rd level of Yuan level when she came to the section. In more than a year, she not only crossed a major level, but also gained 4 more levels. Such a speed of promotion would be unfair to her even if she was described as a genius. What's more, she was promoted mainly by refining pills and poisons. She also knows acupuncture. Although her uncle said she learned it at home before, a person's energy is limited. She can imagine how diligent and hard-working this little girl is. Before, she looked down on her and thought she was not worthy of her nephew. Now she thinks about it and it feels ridiculous. Who is not worthy of whom? The facts have already been told to her. Yan Xiangluo calmly walked to the bed and sat down on the round stool in front of the bed. She pressed her slender fingers on Baitang Yunyu's wrist and felt his pulse. The room was extremely quiet, with no sound at all. The 5 people who were listening outside all looked at me, and I looked at you. The meaning expressed to each other is very obvious. Do you know that Uncle Yu knows acupuncture? They all shook their heads in tacit understanding. They all heard what Grandmaster Qin he said. Ruan Xiangluo came to see junior brother Yunyu. It took Yan Xiangluo half an hour to feel her pulse. When she released her hand, several people looked at her expectantly. The poison in Baitang's nephew was mixed together, and there should be 36 poisonings. The people who refine the poison are very familiar with the mutual conflict between poisons. Although such a poison is difficult to refine, it is still, detoxification is equally laborious. Detoxification depends on my master. I can use acupuncture to force the poison out of his body and concentrate it in one place to suppress it. However, it can only be suppressed for a month away. Baitang Yunyu had been poisoned for too long. At that time, she could have directly used acupuncture to force the poison out of him. But in his current condition, she could not do that with her current strength. Moreover, she doesn't want to be in the limelight. Let Master take the limelight for detoxification. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief, and the sect leader said gratefully, "Junior sister Yu, thank you so much. You have allowed our Xuanhuan sect to escape this disaster." Uncle Poison King Deng Chang said that he would be able to develop an antidote in half a month. Now that the junior sister has bought them a month, which is enough, how can he not only be excited? Even Miao Yu let out a long breath, at least his nephew's life was saved. Senior brother sect master, you are very polite. I am also a disciple of Xuanhuan section. It is my honor to work for the section. Yu Xiangluo is still very good at speaking in situations. After finishing speaking, she took out the needle roll and said to the sect leader, "Brother, to take off Baitang's nephew's shirt, he needs someone to support him, and he needs acupuncture on both the front and back." Okay, the sect leader responded and took action himself. Although Miao Yu wanted to see Ruan Xiangluo perform acupuncture, there were differences between men and women. Even though she was a nephew, she was different from Ruan Xiangluo. She was a healer. So she stepped back and turned around. The sect master quickly took off Baitang Yunyu's shirt, then got on the bed himself, sat inside and supported Baitang Yunyu, fearing that he would be in the way of Xiangluo outside. The others were all men, but they didn't shy away from it. After all, they were all curious about how powerful Yan Xiangluo's silver needle technique was, so that it could suppress the poison that they were helpless to use. Yan Xiangluo sterilized the needle with wine, which was the same jar that Chang Feng gave her. Baitang Yunyu was just like a black and green man. His body was also black and green. When his apricot eyes saw that there was no change at all, he raised and lowered the needle and began to apply the acupuncture. End of this chapter.